Alright, so this is by Ryan, No More Star Wars for You. This is from Critical Drinker. I'm assuming it's about Ryan Johnson. I didn't really know what's going on here, so let's have a look at what this is about.
Ah, Rian Johnson. That's a name you don't hear too often these days. Well, except when he pops up occasionally to subvert your expectations with another trite, smug, borderline nonsensical murder mystery film, which is the cinematic equivalent of an Agatha Christie novel filtered through the lens of Gary Busey.
Do I look like I need a psychological evaluation?
Not at all.
But there was a time, dear viewer, when his disconcertingly round head was on the thumbnail of every Star
Alright, before he gets into it, let me give my take on Ryan Johnson. So, I liked him initially when he was directing a couple of episodes of Breaking Bad. I thought he was really good, and I enjoyed the first Knives Out movie. Um, did that come out after Last Jedi or before? It doesn't matter. Anyway, Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars thing ever. So, well, not ever. I think probably The Acolyte is worse, but in terms of movies, it's the worst one. So I kind of lost respect for him after that. I don't understand. Uh, yeah, as a director, I just lost respect for him totally after The Last Jedi. And then Knives Out 2, I don't think it was that good. Yeah, I don't really like it. Anyway, let's continue.
Wars video on YouTube. There was a time when his name was on the lips of every fan of the franchise, usually followed up by, "I can't believe they actually let this guy make a Star Wars film." Yes, the man who wrote and directed The Last Jedi, arguably the single most destructive and divisive movie in the whole history of cinema. The film that fractured an entire fan base, derailed an already uncertain sequel trilogy, indirectly triggered the downfall of J.J. Abrams, put the entire Star Wars franchise into a terminal decline which it's probably never going to recover from, and gave us a scene that will live in infamy for as long as cinema exists.
Yeah, I don't know how that scene, like no one around him was like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Don't have that scene in. Maybe we should cut that out." No one said that. They just kept it in. It was unbelievable. What did they what did they do to Luke Skywalker? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that guy. The movie itself was bad enough, but it was Ryan's attitude that really seemed to rile people up. From openly mocking the fan backlash and sniping at people on social media with passive aggressive clapbacks, to casually dismissing any criticism of The Last Jedi, no matter how well informed or intentioned, the guy just absolutely wouldn't give an inch to anyone. The film in his mind was literal perfection, and if you couldn't see that, then you were clearly too stupid to occupy the same planet as his cosmic genius.
Really?
It wasn't just cope, it was an active declaration of war against reality itself. He almost seemed to get off on the hatred directed towards him in his film, like his whole objective from the start wasn't to entertain but to enrage. And well, mission accomplished, I guess. Now, you might think that any studio executive with even a grain of common sense would see Johnson for the nuclear-grade liability that he was, and quietly shuffle him off into obscurity. But leave it to everyone's favourite case study for the Dunning-Kruger effect, Kathleen Kennedy, to take the most logical course of action and do the exact opposites. Before The Last Jedi had even hit the cinemas, Kennedy was hyping Johnson up as the future of Star Wars. He wasn't just doing this film, he was working on a whole trilogy of movies that would truly unleash his creative genius.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
And from her point of view at least, you can kind of see why he was so appealing at the time. TLJ, for all its faults, was one of the few Star Wars projects that didn't cause her any major headaches during production. The film arrived on time and on budget, with no major conflicts or disasters to speak of. Johnson apparently shares her political sensibilities and her commitment to the message. Plus he seems like kind of a pussy, so I'm sure he would have been more than happy to implement all her dumb as fuck ideas. But even Then once The Last Jedi released and the full magnitude of the disaster became obvious even to the most disconnected of executives, Kennedy doggedly stuck to her guns, insisting that Rian was her man and his trilogy was absolutely going to happen. Now, these days the announcement of a new Star Wars project carries about as much weight as Ariana Grande, but back in 2018, before Lucasfilm had a list of failed movies longer than my arm, this was still a big deal, and people took it seriously. If this round-headed narcissist could cripple the franchise with just a single film, imagine how much more damage he could do with 3 of the fucking things.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
But as would eventually become a laughably predictable pattern for Lucasfilm, months slowly turned into years and nothing more was heard about Rian's mythical trilogy. What was it going to be about? What era would it be set in? What characters would it deal with? Was it even going to be in the same galaxy as Star Wars? Nobody knew, least of all Kathleen Kennedy, who for years continued to promise everyone who would listen that Rian was still working on it, that it was all still going to happen, that she wasn't desperately throwing shit against a wall and hoping that something would stick. Then, a few days ago, Rian himself finally confirmed what we all knew for years.
So Star Wars is kinda dead, but I heard that Netflix is thinking about buying it. I think it's just a rumor. For them to fix Star Wars, they would basically have to like redo or rehash, I don't know, a bunch of different things and say, well, this thing doesn't exist anymore, and we're redoing the entire sequel trilogy or something. Definitely something has to change, and you can't just do the same shit all over again. Or like you can't continue with the same problems and issues to where most fans now are against Disney Star Wars. Like you have to change or go back to the original core of Star Wars. George Lucas Star Wars. That's the only way you can fix Star Wars. But right now, I don't think anyone really takes it unless you're like a really hardcore Star Wars fan. You're not really watching Star Wars now. It's kind of dead. Like I can't think of any project that I'm excited about besides the fan film. What's his face? Star Wars Theory, the Vader Episode 2. Like that's the only Star Wars thing I'm excited about, and it's created by a fan, so it's no good.
His trilogy was never gonna happen.
Oh no! What happened?
Nothing really happened with it. We had a great time working together and they said, let's keep doing it. I said, great. I would kick ideas around with Kathy. The short version is, Knives Out happened. I went off and made Knives Out and it was off to the races, busy making murder mysteries.
Bullshit!
Yeah, I'm not really sure I buy the whole I was just too busy excuse. Ryan's released a grand total of 2 movies in the past 7 years. He's not exactly snowed under with work. It doesn't take a genius to surmise what really happened all those years ago. Everyone at Lucasfilm was flying high in the run-up to TLJ's release, expecting it to be an even bigger hit than The Force Awakens, the grand sequel that would finally bury the legacy of old Star Wars and cement the success of Kennedy's new vision for the franchise. Then, when the exact opposite happened, they were thrown into panic modes. Even someone as stubbornly retarded as Kathleen Kennedy would have to know that pushing ahead with a whole trilogy of movies overseen by a guy less popular than the fucking Ebola virus was something that even she couldn't afford to indulge in. On the other hand, publicly firing him or cancelling his trilogy would mean acknowledging the failure of TLJ, and by extension herself for approving it in the first place, and so instead she did... well, nothing at all. She just kept kicking the can down the road, vaguely alluding to the trilogy still being worked on, while desperately hoping that people would either forget about it, or Rian would find something else to do. Any excuse they could use for why his trilogy couldn't happen. Oh yeah, he had amazing ideas, and we were all behind him, and the fans were super excited for more of Rian's version of Star Wars, but we just couldn't get the scheduling to work out. What can you do, eh?
You serious?
You know, it's a testament to the lasting damage that one movie did that even now, almost a decade later, it's still such a toxic and volatile subject that everyone involved is still making excuses for it. You'd think so long after the dust has settled, Rian himself might allow time for just a little bit of introspection and honesty about the film he made. Maybe acknowledge that TLJ wasn't quite the cinematic perfection they all believed it to be, and that's why he's never going to work in the Star Wars franchise again. But nah, that would involve showing a tiny bit of humility and self-reflection, and just like 8 years ago when the backlash and criticism first began, his ego just won't allow for it.
Too much ego.
Better instead to just plow ahead with your little murder mystery films. I mean, the best thing I can say about the Knives Out movies is that, well, at least they keep him from fucking up any more franchises. So farewell, dear Ryan. Whatever anyone else might say about you, you definitely made your mark on Star Wars, that's for sure. Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
So what happened exactly? So basically there was supposed to be a big trilogy. Was he supposed to direct the Rey movie, which I don't know if that's even happening anymore. I don't really know what the context of this is. I guess he explained it that there was supposed to be a big trilogy with him directing it, and it didn't happen. Okay, so I guess he's not going to be involved in Star Wars anymore. Alright, interesting, interesting. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.